Welcome back, everybody, to the Koyos Tribe. Today, we're going to be talking about the 100-year attack on masculinity through the federalization of the school system. So stick with me till the end, and I will prove to you that the school system and the way that it is run and constructed plays a huge part in emasculating our boys and the way that they act today in today's society. So I hope you guys enjoy this. If you have a minute, please like, share, and subscribe, and let's get into this. Okay, let's get into this. So I want to talk about the federalization of schools because I feel like that's the most important part of this. The federalization of schools started in 1965. When this happened, the federal government put out an outline of how they wanted children to learn in the classroom. A lot of this had to do with reading and writing comprehension, math comprehension, and things of that nature. The one thing they didn't take into consideration when they started doing this federalization is that they did a thing called Common Core education, meaning that everybody learns the same all the way across the board. Nothing ever changes. And anything that's passed down from the Board of Education or anything from the federal government that's passed down to the Board of Education in the state will also be passed down to the school and then to the teachers and so on and so forth. Now, the issue with that is that the way that they passed this stuff down to the teachers was to force girls and boys to learn the same way. Sit at a desk, be quiet, do your work. Here's a pen, here's a pencil. You need to make sure that you focus and do this work the way that you're supposed to. Now, most of us, that's the way that we went through school. Here's the issue with that. Boys and girls both learn differently. There is studies that show that boys learn by movement and activity, and girls learn more by writing and reading and things like that, right? The two brains are completely different. This is another reason why gender matters. So boys learn kinesthetically and girls do not. Kinesthetic means that they have to learn hands-on movement, activity, going outside. My son learns better by me taking him out into the garage and teaching him how to take a tire off of a car and showing him how the brakes work, rather than me giving him a piece of paper and saying, this is how brakes work on a car. He's going to get it better and he's going to be more in tune with what I'm showing him if I take him outside and I show him hands-on how to do this with the vehicle, right? So, whereas a girl may not really be interested in that kind of thing. They don't really want to go out in the garage. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't really want to look at it. It's just not something that they're interested in, right? But if you put her in knitting or you put her in something that she's more interested in like that, right, where she has to think about things, that is something that a girl is more in tune with, right? So what the federalization of schools did is it forced them to learn all the way across the board the same way, right? Now, going further back than the 1960s, there used to be, get this, there used to be boxing in school. All the way down to the elementary level, there used to be boxing in school. This was boxing training and teaching skills, and they would have a little ring set up, and they would let these kids go and box out in the back of the school, like a playground, right? So they pulled that out of the schools around the 1960s, around the same time that they started to integrate this learning federalization program for the schools, for the Common Core. So what had happened is that they started to pull those things out, and then they made boys sit down at a desk and try to learn that way. The outcome of that was catastrophic because boys don't learn that way. So around this time, around the 1960s, is when you see the outbreak of ADHD or ADD. I'm not sure if outbreak is the right word to use, but when you start to see it take hold is around the 1960s era, mid 1960s to late 60s, early 70s, right? Well, this is because the federalization of the schools forced these boys to sit down. Also, you have boxing being pulled out of the schools. And there were some people who had campaigned against the boxing in schools in the 1960s, saying that it was not safe and it was not healthy. Later on, you also see the destruction of Boy Scouts of America, right? Right now, you're starting to see the Boy Scouts of America is accepting woke policies, right? So That's pushing a lot of boys out of Boy Scouts. A lot of boys don't want to be in that anymore. Over the years, we've seen a lot of these activities in schools disappear and being replaced with sit down, shut up, do your work. Here's a pen and a piece of paper. You got to learn the same way as everybody else. And that does not work. So the reason why I call this the 100-year war on masculinity is because we're in 2025 now. In 1925 is when these things started to kind of take a downhill approach, right? There used to be boxing in schools. Boys used to learn by activities, going outside, those kinds of things. There was different ways for boys to learn, and they kind of understood that boys needed to get up and walk around, and, they may not have fully understood what was going on, but the schools were free to make their own decisions until the federalization came. When the federalization came, it forced all these schools to capitulate and go under the same way of teaching and the same way of learning, right? Which was catastrophic to boys. Now, if you look at, I'm gonna put a graph up too. If you look at the graph and you look at the time that ADHD and ADD started, it's around the same time that they pulled all of these things out of the school and forced them to learn a certain way. So as you move forward from the 1960s and 1970s, when this started, is when things started to plummet. Around the 90s, it's forced integration, and they were forced to sit down and still continue to learn the same way. ADHD continues to go on the rise. ADD continues to go on the rise, and these boys are being put on essentially what I like to call hormone blockers. You have Paxil, you have Ritalin, you have Wellbutrin. Nobody can tell me different because I was on them, and it affected me. It turned me into a zombie. It made me sit down, and it made me not want to do anything. This is an attack on masculinity. I don't care what anybody says. You're giving these boys pills around the age of 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 when they are trying to hit puberty, right? When their body is growing. And you are essentially stunting their growth by giving them these. Now, on my last one, in episode 3, I did a piece on the pharmaceutical companies and the ADD and ADHD medications. So Ritalin, Paxil, Wellbutrin. There's so many that I can't even go through them all. Adderall. And in those, they state that they mess with the endocrine system, right? With the way that your hormones are balanced in your body. So if this is the case, you already have boys that are told that they need to sit down, shut up, do their work. Here's a pen and a piece of paper. You have to learn like everybody else in the class. And now they're getting antsy in their seat, and they want to get up and they want to bounce around and they want to go talk to their friend and they want to play with the toy and they want to do this. Is because they're boys. Boys do not learn the same way as girls. We are not the same. The identity is not the same. We are male and female. Females learn one way, males learn another way. So, because of woke policies and because of the federalization of schools in the 60s and the 70s, and because of pulling sports out of schools, and because of these teachers saying, I can't get this kid to sit down, he won't pay attention, he doesn't do his work. Well, yeah, because he's not a girl. He doesn't learn the same way as everybody else. Then they go and put them on medications, and the medications start to feminize the boys because they are interrupting their endocrine receptors and messing with their hormones. And now we have what we have today. And are they still doing it? Yes. We are in 2025, and they're still trying to attack masculinity because apparently it's not enough. The 1960s and the 70s was not enough. So now it is, in some schools, they are teaching toxic masculinity in grades as early as 3rd grade. I'm not saying they're doing this in every single school. However, it is happening and should absolutely not be allowed to happen in the school. So if you are a parent, you have boys, you have girls, please make sure that you're speaking up about this to your school. Do not be quiet, because if you be quiet, they win. They're going to do whatever they want. So also, this tends to come out in other ways with kids as well. Tends to come out in bullying and, pushing people around, and grades are flunking and things like that, right? So to be honest, they're talking about toxic masculinity in schools, but they're actually causing more toxic masculinity because of the way that they're trying to force boys to integrate with girls and learn the same way, which doesn't work. So I figured I wanted to do a video on this because I felt it was very important. When I was a kid, I was in school, and if I got up and bounced around and didn't want to sit down, couldn't do my work, couldn't do tests, all that other kind of stuff, right? That I'm sure some of you other men have heard out there. They immediately took me to a doctor, and the doctor prescribed me ADD and ADHD medication. Because of that, I have wrestled with a little bit of health issues over the years, right? With reproduction and things like that. So I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. I feel like this is something very important. I feel like the masculinity crisis deserves a lot more attention, and that's the reason why I'm doing these episodes. If you like what I'm doing, please like, share, subscribe, and pass this around to as many people as you can so we can get this out there. If you are a parent, make sure you are sticking up for your kids and do not back down. Thank you for watching the Koyos Tribe, and we'll see you on the next one.